We've now seen the differences between writing and speaking, so let's move it closer into the performance of actual speeches. So merely performing literacy or orality can make the speech more nerve-wracking and in many cases harder to understand. And I want to look at this through the lens of performance and communication orientation. And in this class, we're going to adopt a communication orientation. I'm going to unpack these terms here in a moment. In general, I take my understanding of these terms from Michael Motley's work. He's got a slim volume on public speaking apprehension, fear of public speaking, where he really fleshes these out. But at the broadest level, I want to think of performance and communication orientation as a continuum. You know, we can sort of identify certain performances somewhere along this line, speeches somewhere along this line between a performance orientation and a communication orientation. And in fact, this performance is a metaphor, right? Is it like a stage performance or is it more like a conversation, a communication conversation? So on the performance side, well, we tend to see these as being more literary. Okay, being more akin to the written word. In terms of speech preparation, often these are going to be full manuscripts, okay, written out speeches word for word. On the other end, on the communication orientation, we're going to see more outlining, minimal outline, so that the speaker can move off of that preparation and actually engage the audience. So it's not mapping out each and every word, which may have been, once again, written for the eye rather than for the ear, but working off of minimal outline. Performance orientation, well, because it's written out, it's probably going to be either read at the audience or completely memorized. So once again, the stage metaphor is appropriate. It's like if you went to go see a play of Hamlet, a staging of Hamlet. And if you're going to see Hamlet, you're going to hear the words. The actor is not going to just wing it to do Hamlet. You know what the words are, and you're going to hear those specific words. The actor doesn't start off the famous soliloquy with, "To be or not to be? That's a question. Let me think on that." Audience, any ideas? You're not going to see that. That's not what that space is about. So here, if we're dealing with a full manuscript, we're probably dealing with read speeches or memorized speeches. Now on the other side, if we're dealing with more of a minimal outline, it needs to be practiced. You need to know where you're going in that presentation, but it can be interactive. Why? Because you're tapping more into conversational speech. Right now, I kind of know where I'm going in this presentation. I have no idea what word is going to come out of my mouth in 100 words. I hope it's chocolate, because chocolate's delicious, but I don't think it will be. But I don't know what's happening. So in the sense that I know where the presentation is going, but the words are being generated spontaneously, as we do in conversation. So here, if it's not memorized, it's much more interactive. I can work with that audience. On the other hand here, if it's a manuscript and it's read, then it's going to be speaking at the audience, right? The focus is going to be from the speaker's eyes to that manuscript. The audience is not going to be much of an active factor in that communication act. And that's a shame, because speech should be more about that act of communication. So that's going to be much more speaking at the audience. Here, if we're working off a minimal outline, I'm interacting with the audience, I can actually engage them. I'm speaking with the audience. Now, they're not talking as much as I am in delivering a presentation, but I'm trying to recreate that sense of a conversation, that sense of a give and take between interlocutors, okay? Last thing I'll say, and this is often counterintuitive to many people, writing out that speech, reading it at the audience is often more nerve-wracking. It's often more nerve-wracking than on a communication side. If I practice it, I plan the speech, I practice it, but I'm working off a minimal outline so I can engage the audience, that's probably going to be less nerve-wracking. Why is this more nerve-wracking? Well, there's lots of theories on this, or some theories on this, but in many ways it comes down to the threshold for failure is pretty low. If the word is the thing, if I get a paragraph wrong, it's wrong. if I get a sentence wrong, if I get a word in the wrong place, it's gone off the rails. As opposed to in conversation, I might start and restop a sentence, but that's not a horrible thing. We're able to adapt because that's how flexible and dynamic spoken language is. So in this class, we're going to be doing communication orientation rather than performance orientation. Now, there are lots of exceptions to this basic dynamic. So the State of the Union address here in the United States, the president gets up and addresses the nation. Right? He's not winging it. He's not making it up as he goes. It's not, my fellow Americans, the State of the Union is strong-ish, I suppose. How y'all doing? It's hot out tonight. You know, he's not doing that. It is very deliberately mapped out. It is a manuscripted speech. But writing for the ear, writing something that sounds like it can be delivered naturally or is able to be processed by listeners as naturally occurring speech or as logical speech takes practice. In this class, we'll get there. By the time we get to that persuasive speech, we're going to be doing a lot more writing for the ear. But right now, I want to make sure that we're at least understanding and working within and getting the full benefits of this communication orientation. So what I'd like you to do now at the end of this video is you'll notice on the course webpage, I've got a link to some clips on YouTube. And what I want you to do is go watch those clips. I've got sample clips. But I want you to locate each one of those individual speakers on the performance communication continuum. Where do they sit? Are they more on one side or the other? Are they in the middle? Why? You know, if they're, you know, what are they doing in terms of performance or communication orientation that you think is effective or ineffective? Are they reading? Do they seem or do they sound natural? Is a speaker more compelling than another one? So these are American examples, and just because there's some convenient ones I've used in the past, but they're also famous examples, and I want to do that because I want to make sure I'm using people who are aware that they're being watched, as opposed to some poor guy on YouTube that I grab his clip and then all of us watch it and make fun of him. We'd never do that. But that explains these clips. But what I want you to do is watch these clips, think through these issues, and then talk about this, think about this on your own, but then also post in the discussion forum. See how others are responding to these very issues. So with that, I'll end here so that you can go take a look at those sample clips.